My name is Lena, and I never thought the person who would betray me the worst would be my own sister. I worked for years to build the life I have, my home, my stability, my peace. But while I was away on vacation, my sister secretly tried to sell my apartment, forging my signature and planning to replace me in my own life. What she didn't know was that I had hidden cameras recording everything. This is the story of how I stopped being the family's doormat and became the storm they never saw coming. Where are you watching from? Comment below and subscribe for more. 3 days ago, I walked into what used to be my sanctuary, my home, and found my younger sister Aria standing in the middle of my living room with a clipboard in her hand, smiling like a real estate agent on commission. Except she wasn't a real estate agent. She was my sister. And the place she was giving a tour of was my apartment. The same apartment I had been paying for since I was 21. The apartment I had scrimped and clawed and starved my way into owning. Aria was walking a couple through the space, describing square footage, sunlight exposure, nearby bus lines, the newly renovated lobby, like she owned the deed herself. Before I even processed the betrayal, Aria turned to the couple and said, "And of course the seller is highly motivated, so we're able to negotiate." I stood there, frozen, my keys still in my hand, my breath stuck somewhere in my chest. My home, my safe place, the only thing I had ever built entirely on my own. And there she was, selling it behind my back. If you've ever felt betrayed by the people you trusted most, this story is for you. Tell me where you're watching from in the comments. And make sure you subscribe, because what happened next, you won't believe it. But before I get to the part where everything falls apart and then comes beautifully, painfully back together, I need to explain how my family got me here. Because the truth is, this betrayal didn't start 3 days ago. It started years ago, quietly, slowly, drip by drip. My parents, Martin and Elaine, are masters of emotional debt. They have this remarkable ability to make their needs feel like responsibilities, like obligations, like debts owed. They were never outright cruel. That would be too obvious. Instead, they wrapped their requests in sweetness, wrapped their guilt in family loyalty. "Lena, sweetheart, you know your father's hours were cut. Could you help with the electric bill this month?" "Lena, we're so proud of how responsible you are. You always know what to do." Or, my personal favorite, "We raised you, didn't we? We sacrificed everything. So of course you'll help when we need you." They didn't ask. They expected. And Aria, my sister, was always the chosen one. The precious one. The one they protected. The one who never lifted anything heavier than a textbook, and even then complained her wrists hurt. While I was working part-time in high school to save for college application fees, Aria was going to dance lessons 3 times a week, getting pedicures with my mother on Saturdays, growing up wrapped in silk and ease. And I stupidly, desperately believed it was my job to shield her, to make her life easier, to give her time to find herself. Because that's what Mom always said. Aria just needs time. She's delicate, sensitive. She'll blossom if she's nurtured. And I believed that. I believed all of it. So I covered her student loan payments, her car insurance, her Uber rides, her rent for 2 years. Meanwhile, I was working 60-hour weeks at a corporate consulting firm, living off thrift store blazers and instant noodles, watching my paycheck drain straight into the black hole of family support. But I didn't complain. Because when you are raised to be the strong one, you don't question. You just endure. You tell yourself it's temporary, that one day you will rest. The apartment, my apartment, was supposed to be that rest. My one stable place. My one accomplishment. I bought it at 21 after graduating early and landing a job that paid just enough to keep me afloat. It wasn't luxurious. But it was mine. Mine to clean. Mine to furnish. Mine to sit in at the end of a long day and breathe. 6 months ago, after years of grinding without pause, I finally allowed myself a vacation. 1 week in Greece. 1 week of ocean wind and quiet away from everyone who needed something from me. Arya had offered to stay in my apartment to take care of Cato, my 3-year-old golden retriever, the only being in my life who loved me without expectation or demand. "Of course, I'll look after him," she'd said, hugging me tightly at the airport. "He's my little nephew. Go. Enjoy your life for once." I should have known. When I returned, nothing seemed off. The apartment was clean. Too clean. My mail stacked neatly. Cato well-fed. Arya cheerful. Almost glowing. I assumed, like always, that she had behaved with the best intentions. It wasn't until 3 days later, walking Cato down the block, that Mrs. Whitaker from 3C stopped me. "Lena, dear, I hope your sale goes smoothly. The market is strong right now. You'll make a fortune." I laughed. "Sale? No." Surely she meant someone else. But when she said my apartment number, my blood turned to ice. I didn't confront Arya right away. I needed proof. I called the number on the listing. I pretended to be a buyer. And when the agent told me, "Miss Arya Dalton is accepting offers," I felt something inside me break. Not crack. Not bruise. Break. The kind of break that changes a person forever. But here's what Arya didn't know. When I renovated last year, I installed hidden security cameras all over the apartment. Not for safety. Not for burglars. For my family. I had learned the hard way that trust without protection is just self-inflicted harm. So while I was sipping iced coffee on a balcony overlooking the Aegean Sea, I unknowingly watched my sister photograph my financial documents, measure my rooms, stage my furniture, meet with a realtor, practice forging my signature. She didn't just betray me. She planned it. She studied it. She rehearsed it. And now that I have seen every second of her betrayal with my own eyes, now that I have 6 months of footage of conspiracy and fraud and theft, I am no longer the older sister who fixes everything. I am something else entirely. And Arya is about to learn that I did not survive everything I've survived just to be robbed in my own home. This time, I am the storm. The moment I realized the full extent of Arya's betrayal, something inside me shifted. Not snapped. Snapping implies breaking, and breaking implies fragility. No, this was something else. Something quieter, colder, a settling, like ice forming over still water. A clarity that was almost frightening in how calm it felt. I knew what I needed to do, and I knew I needed to do it carefully, because my family operates like a hive. Hurt one, and the others swarm. Not to fight fair, not to understand, but to control, to guilt, to gaslight, to twist the narrative until I was once again the problem. The selfish one, the ungrateful one, the one who had forgotten family comes first. So I played along. Arya invited me to dinner. The way she phrased it was almost comical. "Come tonight. We'll talk it out. As a family." As if we were dealing with a misunderstanding instead of premeditated fraud. As if the issue was communication, not theft. As if she could charm and cry and manipulate her way out of something this big. But I didn't argue. I didn't confront her. I didn't even hint that I knew. I simply said, "Of course, I'll be there." Because that was exactly what she expected me to say. When I got home, I opened my laptop and transferred every piece of video footage from the security system to an external storage drive. Not just the recordings, timestamps, motion sensor logs, file metadata. Everything. I printed still frames and placed them in a folder. I made copies of the forged documents Arya had been practicing. I downloaded call logs with the realtor, By the time I was finished, I had assembled a case that could send my sister to prison for at least 5 years. Then I put the evidence away because I wasn't going to use it. Not yet. Arya needed to show me something tonight. Not love, not remorse, but intention. And I needed to know exactly what kind of person I was dealing with. At 6:30, I drove to my parents' house. Their porch light flickered the same way it had since I was a child, but the familiarity didn't comfort me. It suffocated me. It reminded me of every emotional debt I'd ever paid in this house, every apology I had made for simply wanting a life of my own. I walked inside. My mother hugged me first, arms tight, warm, just firm enough to imply that the embrace also functioned as a restraint. "Oh, sweetheart," she murmured, like I had suffered some unfortunate circumstance life had thrust upon me. "I know this whole identity theft situation has been stressful." I pulled away slowly. Identity theft. Interesting vocabulary choice. My father was sitting at the dining table, fingers steepled, jaw tense, the posture of a man preparing to be disappointed. And Arya looked beautiful. She always did. Soft curls, expensive lashes, delicate necklace with a tiny pearl. She had always been the one people wanted to protect on sight. The one who looked like life was something meant to cradle her. She gave me a practiced smile. Not guilty, not apologetic, just hopeful. Hopeful that her performance would work. We sat down. The pasta was already served. My mother believed everything could be solved over food, mostly because she never wanted anyone to leave hungry. Hungry people leave. People who stay owe her something. Arya spoke first. "So, I just want to say, I'm really sorry about the whole apartment misunderstanding." Misunderstanding. I waited. I didn't mean for you to get confused or upset. I was just trying to help. I thought maybe if we sold the apartment, we could use the money to move into a bigger place together. You'd finally have space for an office. I'd have room to grow. We both benefit. There it was. Not an apology, a justification, a partnership fantasy she invented to rewrite the narrative into something generous, something mutual. You didn't lose something. We both gained. See, isn't that fair? I nodded slowly. You were trying to help? She brightened. Yes, exactly. I mean, I didn't know how to bring it up before. I didn't want to overwhelm you while you were working so much. So I thought I'd start the process and then talk to you once things were more concrete. More concrete, like finalized, like irreversible. So, my father said, his tone measured, we just need to calm down and look at this logically. Arya meant well. She was thinking about the family. Family, the God they worshipped. My mother reached for my hand, squeezing it gently. And really, Lena, you've done so well. You're stable. You have a great job. You're so responsible. You can handle change better than she can. Arya's struggling affects all of us. We need to support her. There it was. The script they had rehearsed for years. You have strength. Arya has needs. Therefore, you give and she takes. That is the natural order. I had spent my whole life believing that was love. But now I saw it clearly. Love is mutual. Obligation is one-sided. And what they felt for me was not love. I set down my fork. For how long? I asked quietly. My father blinked. What do you mean? For how many years am I expected to give up my financial stability? My home? My savings? For how many years am I supposed to sacrifice so Arya can avoid responsibility? 1 more year? 5? 10? Forever? Silence. My mother's face tightened. Don't be dramatic. You know families share. I smiled. A small, calm smile. The kind you see on people who already know the outcome of the game. I am not asking for anything unreasonable. I am asking for boundaries. My father leaned back, exhaling sharply. Boundaries are fine, but you're overreacting. This situation isn't as serious as you're making it. I looked directly at Arya. So the forged documents weren't serious? The room froze. Arya's eyes widened, not in guilt, but in fear of being caught. My mother frowned. What documents? I kept my voice steady, smooth, controlled. I watched the videos, the security footage, all of it. My father's chair creaked. Security footage? The cameras I installed record automatically to cloud storage. Arya didn't know that. Arya swallowed. Hard. But she still didn't apologize. Lena, I just... No, I said, don't explain. Because right now, I need to know something. And I need you to answer honestly. Her throat bobbed as she nodded. If I hadn't come home early, if the sale had gone through, what was your plan? What was I supposed to do? The silence that followed was so thick it felt like a physical thing pressing down on the room. Arya's lip trembled, not from remorse, but from being cornered. I thought, maybe you could move back here for a while, just until things settled. My childhood bedroom, my life reset to zero, so she could live in the home I built. My mother reached out again. It would have worked out. We would have figured it out together. There it was. They expected me to start over, to abandon everything I'd worked for, to go backward, so Arya could move forward. So I stood, calmly, smoothly, quietly, and I said, no. My father's tone sharpened. Lena, sit down. No, I repeated, I'm not sacrificing my life anymore. I am not paying for her failures anymore. I will not fund her comfort while I struggle. I will not save her from consequences she created. My mother's voice rose, tight with panic. You can't just abandon your sister. I looked at Arya. My sister abandoned me first. Then I placed the folder on the table. Inside it was everything. The screenshots, the footage stills, the forged signatures, the realtor contracts. My father opened it. His face drained of color. My mother covered her mouth. Arya's chair scraped back. Lena, please, don't do this. Please don't tell anyone. I shook my head once. I haven't decided what I'm going to do yet. But whatever happens next, I will decide it. Not you. Not Mom. Not Dad. Me. Arya's breath hitched. Please. I didn't mean... Yes, I said softly. You did. She broke then, not because she regretted hurting me, but because she realized she had finally lost control of me. And in that moment, something I had been clinging to my entire life, hope that my family loved me the way I loved them, finally let go. I walked to the door. No one stopped me, not because they respected my choice, but because for the first time in 20 years, they feared me. And honestly, it felt like peace. I didn't go home after that dinner. I didn't cry. I didn't shake. I didn't scream into a steering wheel or collapse on my couch or call a friend to vent. I simply drove, window down, air cold, mind clear. There is a specific kind of quiet that comes when you finally stop begging people to respect you. I went home, fed Cato, sat on the floor beside him, running my fingers through his fur while he lay his head on my lap. He had sensed the change in me too. Dogs always do. They recognize when something broken has finally sealed closed. The next morning, I made coffee and opened my laptop, not to review evidence, not to watch or rewatch Betrayal. I didn't need to see anything else. I already knew the truth. Instead, I emailed my building manager and my real estate lawyer. Yes, my lawyer. The one I hired 6 months earlier when I refinanced the apartment. Because unlike my family, I had always planned for my future. I knew that one day I might need help that didn't come from guilt or obligation. I scheduled a meeting. Then I called the realtor from the listing. This is the actual owner of the property. I said, voice sharp, precise, controlled. You have 5 hours to remove my apartment from your listings and terminate all engagements with Ms. Aria Dalton. If you do not, I will be filing charges against your firm for participating in a real estate fraud scheme. You will also be included in the legal action I am preparing. Silence on the line. Only the faint hum of someone realizing they had stepped into something far larger than they understood. Yes, of course, the agent replied quickly. We'll remove it immediately. 5 minutes later, the listing was gone. Next, I changed the locks. Every one of them. Front door, balcony latch, mailbox, everything. Aria still had a key. She would no longer. By noon, I had compiled everything and brought it to my lawyer. She reviewed each file with the expression of someone who had seen far too many families devour their own. You have enough to press charges for identity theft, real estate fraud, falsifying documents, and attempted property transfer without consent, she said. Your sister would likely face probation at minimum, and depending on the DA, up to 3 years. 3 years. 3 years that would change her forever. I sat with that quietly. I had lived my entire life protecting this girl. I had bled for her, starved for her, worked myself sick for her. I had handed her everything I built with my bare hands because I believed love meant sacrifice. But love is not sacrifice. Love is never sacrifice. Love is choice. And I was done choosing pain. I want to confront her, I said, finally, in a way that makes it undeniable. I want her to hear what she did. Really hear it. My lawyer nodded once. Then do it somewhere neutral, where she can't twist the narrative. And make sure someone else is there, someone impartial. I knew exactly who. The next evening, I called Aria and asked her to meet me at a small cafe near my building. She showed up looking tired, mascara smudged, like she hadn't slept. But still, there was hope in her eyes. Hope that I would forgive her. Hope that I would reset everything like I always had. Hope that I would fold. She sat down across from me. Lena, thank you for meeting. I placed the folder on the table between us. No words, just the folder. Her breath caught. Aria, I said quietly, I need you to listen, and I need you to not speak until I'm finished. She nodded slowly, tears already forming. You didn't just try to sell my home. You tried to erase my life, my stability, my independence. You tried to take the only thing I have, that is mine. Tears streamed down her cheeks. Silent, slow. I have forgiven you for a lot, Aria. Things I don't think you even remember. But this was intentional. This was thought out. This was planned. Her voice was barely a whisper. I know I messed up. I was scared. I didn't know how to get my life together. I felt like I was falling behind you. I thought if I had a place, if I had a fresh start, maybe I could become someone. I didn't look away. You don't become someone by stealing what someone else built. She closed her eyes, shoulders shaking. So, tell me the truth, I continued. Would you have told me? Ever? A long moment passed before she whispered. No. There it was. The real answer. The only answer that mattered. I nodded. I'm not pressing charges, I said. Her head snapped up, hope flaring too fast. But we are done. The hope shattered. You will never ask me for money again. You will never come to my apartment again. You will never use my name, my connections, my resources, or my time again. We are adults now. You will learn how to take care of yourself. Not because I am punishing you, but because I am finished destroying myself to save you. She sobbed openly, quietly, shoulders curled in as if trying to make herself smaller. And maybe for the first time in her life, she understood what it meant to lose something real. Not money, not comfort, me. And Aria, I finished, my voice soft but unmovable. I hope you do become someone. Truly. But it won't be by standing on my shoulders anymore. You'll have to build yourself from the ground up. The way I did. I stood, picked up my coat, looked at her one last time. I loved you. I hope someday you understand that. And then I walked away. My parents called, begged, shouted, threatened guilt, tried every weapon they knew, but they couldn't reach me anymore. Because once you learn your worth, you stop giving people discounts. In the weeks that followed, the silence from my family was louder than any argument we had ever had. Not because they were giving me space out of respect, but because they were recalculating, revising the family equation, relearning the shape of their world now that the person who held it together had stepped away. I expected guilt-filled voicemails, long emotional texts, teary apologies, maybe even a drive-by visit. I got none of that. What I did get were practical, clipped messages from my mother. We need to talk about Thanksgiving. Your father thinks you're overreacting. Families forgive Lena. You're being cold. Call your sister. She's hurting. Not one message asked if I was hurting. That told me everything. I didn't reply. Instead, I poured into what I had starved for years, myself. I rearranged my apartment, not to erase memories, but to reclaim space. I bought a new couch, repainted the living room, hung new curtains. I made it mine again, not just legally, but emotionally. Cato would sit beside me each night, his head on my knee, breathing slow and steady, reminding me that loyalty exists, just not always where we expect it. I also did something I should have done a long time ago. I scheduled an appointment with a therapist, not a crisis therapist, not someone to tell me how to stop reacting, someone who understood family systems, someone who understood what it meant to be the responsible one, someone who could help me unpack the years of guilt I had mistaken for love. I told her everything, the money, the manipulation, the expectations, the betrayal. She listened without interrupting once. When I finally finished, she didn't ask, "Why didn't you just say no?" the way so many others do. Instead, she said, "Children raised to be responsible for everyone else never learn how to be responsible for themselves. You didn't fail. You woke up. Woke up. Yes." Slowly, I began putting boundaries in place everywhere. At work, with acquaintances, even with myself. I stopped explaining my no. I stopped apologizing for protecting my peace. I stopped volunteering to solve problems I didn't create. And strangely, life did not fall apart. In fact, it got quieter, softer, kinder.